Hi, I'm Tyra G, your host of Frankly Speaking with Tyra G. Welcome again to our virtual global gathering of phenomenal women and those of you who love them. Yeah, you, fearsome and generous, humble and honest, in pursuit of new possibilities and purpose. Each month we explore a new theme inspired by you. Yeah, I said you. This is your show, okay? We bravely walk into places where tradition has taught us there's some things we just don't talk about. But not here. Here we live beyond the wreckage, and judgment cannot get in. Every week our goal is to experience, educate, encourage, and empower one another. We share some aha moments and stories that have been left in our pockets for too long. Every week we start right where we are. You're listening to Radio Fairfax, Virginia, on your TV, computer, or mobile device. And we are webcast worldwide on the internet at www.radiofairfax.org every Saturday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, should you miss us, I know it's date night, so no worry. You can check us out on YouTube. Just key in Frankly Speaking with Tyra G and hit upload, and there we are. And if you feel like talking to me offline, that's easy too. I appreciate the emails. Keep them coming at tyragarlington.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you, Courtney Nero, for composing and performing our Frankly Speaking theme song, and for creatively naming it I'm Listening. Our October theme is All Things Considered. Four phenomenal guests are sharing their considerations and choices they have made and continue to make in their professional and personal spaces. They're sharing their wisdom, their heroes, their sheroes, the lessons learned, the tattoos on their hearts. They're going to talk about dreams realized and dreams to be awakened. To create our common thought space for today, I want you to consider a story that you do not often hear. And you're going to have to listen with your hearts, okay? Daryl D. Belliette was named as one of the 40 of the 40, an Argus-supported program of the True Colors Fund that provides opportunities for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning youth who have experienced homelessness or housing inability to speak for themselves. Up to 40% of homeless young people in the United States are LGBTQ. D lives in Columbus, Ohio, where he works as a cultural competency and workforce development trainer for health tech professionals. He graduated most recently from Colorado Technical University and holds a bachelor's degree in healthcare administration and nursing, an associate degree in business administration, and certification as a medical assistant. Here is Dee's story in his own words, and I quote, I experienced housing instability when I was about 16 years old after coming out to my mom and my stepdad. There were times I had places to go, but they weren't home. And there were periods when I was homeless, where I had absolutely no place to go. I was a sophomore in high school, and I would hang out where teenagers were known to be gay or as identify as gay or lesbian or bisexual or trans. I wasn't comfortable with the questions from my mom like, you know you're hanging out with him and he's gay, so how are you guy friends? Eventually, it got to the point where I said, These are my friends. They've accepted me into the gay community. They are my gay friends. I'm gay. It just came out all at once. It was overwhelming for my mom to take it all in. I remember the day she said something like, well, you're not gay, because that's impossible. That can't be you. That's not my son. And I remember saying, well, I am. What should I do about it? And she really didn't have a response besides, well, if this is a lifestyle you're going to have, the best that you have, you need to go somewhere else to live. And that was the end of the conversation. It felt like she'd given up on me. And that was hurtful to accept, so it wasn't easy for me to even give a phone call back to just say, hey, can we talk about this? Or, what am I supposed to do? My dad was a physician working in Africa, so it wasn't easy to reach him and tell him that I was gay. Well, he's from Colombia, so a lot of his his family's in South America. And it's not an easy phone call to make and say, hey, I need help. For a while, I was on my own in the community where I lived in Columbus, Ohio. Even though it's the state capital, there weren't many resources for a gay male, a homeless male guy, especially a minor. For about a year and a half, I was here and there and everywhere and in between, staying at friends' houses or with family members who, at the time, hadn't gotten the news that I was gay. There were plenty times I slept in my car. I remember feeling a huge sense of hopelessness. And though my life wasn't worth living I thought my life wasn't worth living anymore because I had no one. But it turns out I did. My dad, he accepted me and supported me. He empowered me to continue my education. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be as strong as I am right now. I graduated early from high school, started college early when I was 17, and I worked my way through college. And that led me out of hopelessness. What I just read to you is not a singular anecdotal story. There are many young people out there, regardless of gender identification, that are homeless. The nation is trying to respond, but culturally, socially, and psychologically, it's a concept that we have to get behind and understand. And after our break, you're going to meet a woman who lives in this space, who's passionate about this space, who understands that homelessness is a process. We don't just suddenly become that. There are cultural and societal dimensions that make it happen. Sometimes we're triggered by an event. Yes, we have today a passionate, professional game changer who's committed to empowering positive outcomes through information and commitment. So I want you to put your feet up, grab a snack, and after the break, we'll be right back. Stay close now.
You've been dreaming all week about night train memories, sounds of the cities. Your dreams come true every Saturday from 4 until 6 p.m. here on Radio Fairfax.
Hour of Solution with Dr. Jacob Sackie. If you're not quite ready to start the week, tune in for an inspirational discourse to get you through the day. Hour of Solution, Monday morning at 10 on Radio Fairfax.
And we are back. And as you might have guessed, our topic today is homelessness. Now, I know the theme of the month is all things considered, but there's no way we can cover the entire topic. My guest is calling in from Newark, New Jersey, and welcome again to Frankly Speaking with Tyra G, Miss Sakinah Hoyte.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is a huge treat. You know that I ask each of my guests to assume the role of a book in a human library and introduce yourself to our listening audience and perhaps give us an introduction or preface that will make us want to read the entire book to get to know you very well.
Okay. This is very, very personal, but I listened and I tried to do what you asked me to do.
Okay, we want you to do this.
Sakinah Hoyte is a child of Christ, a wife, a mother, and a human rights advocate. She spent many years advocating for, more specifically for the homeless throughout New Jersey. As a young undergraduate at Howard University, Sakinah spent a lot of time volunteering with youth in underserved areas in the District of Columbia. She's always had a heart full of compassion for all causes affecting underserved populations. She studied administration of justice with the hopes of beginning a career as a youth public defender to directly and hopefully positively impact at-risk youth. To Sakinah's dismay, she was rejected from law school she applied to. Without any idea of how to move forward and much prayer, she accepted a job at a minor league baseball team in New Jersey with no job title and or promise of success. For almost a week, she showed up to the job feeling lost, out of place, and directionless. When her father finally stepped in and encouraged her to pull the owner of the baseball team aside and ask him to give her specific responsibilities. As a result of this impromptu meeting with the owner, Sakinah found herself with the title of executive assistant to the executive management, and in 2 short years promoted to the vice president of operations for the company. After a few good years with the company, Sakinah found herself once again jobless and at a crossroads about next steps in life. And the one and only thing she was clear about was that she earnestly wanted to work in her life's purpose. Sakinah has often found herself in what has often felt like hopeless, uncertain, and uncomfortable circumstances. But through much prayer and faith in Christ, again and again, she's found herself experiencing unmerited favor and unimaginable outcomes.
Is that it?
That's it.
I think what's special about what you just said, Sakinah, is though it was personal to you, each of us at some point in time has faced uncertainty and disappointment. And luckily for you, you had a father who stepped in. And my prayer is for everyone to have at least someone in the role of encourager and someone there to empower us when we are in that space. Yeah. So thank you for being vulnerable and authentic with that introduction. You and I talked briefly before the show started that maybe we ought to talk about homelessness and people who are homeless as a problem for the United States. Now,
Yeah.
you know, and why don't you take us on that trip? Why don't you set the stage for us?
So, a good place to start is here in New Jersey.
Okay.
Every year, the Department of Housing and Urban Development requires that communities that are trying to get funding from HUD conduct an overnight 24-hour survey of the homeless on one given night. And usually that's the last Friday of January. So each community across the country is required to conduct this survey of their homeless population. It's to gather statistics about, each community's needs in regards to the specific demographics of the greater homeless community.
Right.
And as you mentioned earlier, it's very complex. There's different causes of homelessness. Sometimes it's an episodic event, and sometimes it's, something that has found itself in a family for generations.
Yes.
And So this survey helps to provide a snapshot of homelessness in each community. So most recently, the most recent results that we have are from 2017. We have conducted our 2018 survey, but we're waiting on the results.
Mm-hmm.
So as of 2017, we found that in Essex County, and I always find that this is really compelling, 2,048 individuals were found experiencing homelessness in Essex County. 428 of those people were unsheltered. So the other, 1,000 plus individuals were either in shelters or, some sort of institution, maybe a jail, experiencing homelessness. And I think that those numbers are stark and really kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
We also found that the highest cause of homelessness in Essex County in 2017 was because individuals were asked to leave shared residences. The second highest cause was because people were evicted from their residences.
Okay.
So, it's really, I think that's a great place for us to start this conversation.
Absolutely.
Because I think often homelessness is associated with drug addiction and mental health illness. And while we do see that in our homeless population in my county, that's not the driving force behind homelessness.
And I want to make it clear to our listening audience, when we talk about unsheltered and sheltered state of homelessness, and I found this, Sakinah, in my research. It said the state of California, at 68% of its homeless population was unsheltered. So we are talking about people that are vulnerable to communicable diseases, to violence, to death, all sorts of things happening because they don't have a structure that allows them to be there. And you said a jail is a sheltered situation for some homeless people. Hospitals may be mental health facilities and shelters. One of the things that you put it right, hit the nail on the head, is when we use the word homeless, I think an image comes to mind. And the image is a derelict person of sorts, and lying on the street or doing whatever, but someone you don't want to look at.
Right.
You don't want to smell. You don't want to break bread with, okay? Now, what I find interesting with the economy is, like you said, an episodic event. Maybe you had so many medical bills that you couldn't afford anything else. And so I want our listening audience, those who already understand implications, but those who may not have thought of it in that way. The other thing I really want us to talk about, I want you to talk about, is homeless public school students.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And here in Fairfax County, the second or third richest county in the United States, when they did the point in time, is that what you call point in time survey?
Yeah, the point in time count. Mm-hmm.
Right. They came up like 2,000 kids. Come on.
Yeah.
And I'm going, how can that be? And then we don't get the ones, let's see, who are living on couches and in cars, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So tell me about New Jersey and how it deals with homeless students, young people. What does it do?
Okay, so homeless youth is an entirely complicated demographic to work with, to advocate for, because of their age, and they don't have rights because they're under 18, and in most cases, like the young man's story that you read, it is an LGBTQIA youth that is has left their home because or has been kicked out of their home,
Yes.
because they've identified, with their parents. They've come out to their parents. So in New Jersey, there are very few and far between organizations that focus on servicing the youth here in our community. Here in Newark, we found last year there were 770 some odd homeless youth in the Newark public school system. That does not include the Newark charter school system or the private school system.
Okay.
So, and that number is also not included in the 2048 that we counted in the point in time count.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the homeless youth problem is a growing epidemic. We are still in the homeless community trying to wrap our heads around it. In terms of addressing this population, our first action piece is to connect them to a youth service-oriented organization, a safe haven for youth. And some of those organizations include the Covenant House. There's an organization called Urban Renewal that services homeless youth. It's limited resources for youth, because a lot of times youth feel not only do they feel vulnerable, but they are very vulnerable.
Yes.
When we send our street outreach teams to address and or find homeless youth, they're looking on rooftops.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, these kids feel, they're just very vulnerable, and so it's hard to find them, right?
Yes.
And to build the trust that's necessary to move them on to the next steps. So one of the great things that the nation is doing, HUD specifically is doing to address homeless youth, is to increase funding for homeless youth in the form of housing opportunities. And so because we're also seeing that there's students that are aging out of the system, and they have no support.
Exactly. And that's, a lot of people are not aware of that, that support ends at certain ages. Say you're at 18, you get out of high school.
Yes.
And generally they're nonprofits, right? That are supporting these children who are homeless.
Yes.
They don't have a transition. They don't
Right.
have it. Now, here in where I live, an organization I belong to supports a house we have for 20 years for students just like you're describing, that have been cast away, have had terrible times, actually, and they may have had issues with opioid addiction or pregnancy or what have you, but they've been cast away, thrown away, okay?
Right.
And the other thing I wanted to tell you, I had another show on human trafficking some time back, and very often that is the homeless youth is a population that is preyed upon.
Yes.
Recruiting. And here where I live, this area geographically is huge. And I was saying, why? Well, we've got 3 airports. We've got this many. The highway system converges here. It's easy. It's easy. And so, yes, the face of youth that are homeless is fractured and scary and difficult. It breaks my heart. And when you said rooftops, that just really conjured up, an image.
Yeah. They're just trying to survive. And, for us, it's about being creative and innovative in the way that we conduct our street outreach.
Yeah.
and the way that we approach building relationships, and providing services to them. Because often we see when we do, find a homeless youth on the street and we try to engage them, they're generally not alone. They're traveling, they've made friends along the way and or a partner,
Mm-hmm.
and it's difficult because some of the shelters are not equipped to take different sexes.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so they don't want to separate. That's their support network,
That's
and
their family.
exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's incumbent upon us as the service providers to figure out how to um, manipulate our programs to better service them. We say that. I mean, my motto is we need to meet people where they are.
Yes, yes.
And for me, and my team says it all the time that I'm extreme, but for me that means we have to do whatever it takes. So if that means that I have to let someone's partner sleep, I don't know, somewhere safe in my facility, but that's separate from the other population in order to keep that youth or that specific person sheltered for the night and safe for the night, then I
Yes.
have to figure that out.
I hear
And I
you.
think that we have to look at this from a macro level and figure out what we can do in our programs to better service the youth and make the programs more attractive to them.
Exactly. And I always think two things. I think safety first,
Yes,
okay? I think hunger, okay?
100%.
Yeah, I mean, these are emaciated sometimes. Some of the when I work with volunteering in youth facilities, and then there's the other psychological piece that they don't feel worthy.
Mhm.
They don't, and instead of understanding that they are people who are homeless, that's a condition. It does not make them a bad person.
Exactly.
They are separate from what is happening to them, and to
Yes.
get to a point where you can have that conversation requires time.
Yes.
And I want us to really kind of segue into, you mentioned your agency. I
Mhm.
do want you to talk about your agency and the components and how you recruit. Well, just start talking about it.
Sure.
Yes.
So I work for Bridges Outreach. We've been around for 30 years, doing street outreach in New York City, in Newark, and in Irvington here in New Jersey.
Uh huh.
Um, about 8 years ago, we started to take basically a caravan of agencies out with us on our outreach. We have this huge yellow truck. I like to call them our neighbors our neighbors without addresses. Our
Okay.
neighbors would see us. They were used to us being there. They were used to us showing up, and so a lot of the social service providers said, "Hey, can we join you on your weekly street outreach? We think it might be a good way for us to meet people on the street." So
Okay.
naturally, we said, "Sure, join us." So we started doing that on a monthly basis. We take out 25 to 40 social service providers to different neighborhoods in Newark, and we would have street service fairs for the homeless.
Okay. Okay.
And we would see upwards of about 150 people on the street providing them services.
On
So
in a
while they,
day?
yeah, it was huge.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And it was great for the social service providers because they were doing outreach to people that they hadn't otherwise had opportunities to meet. Um, the disconnect, however, was at that time, our neighbors didn't have access to phones. So it was hard. The follow up piece was very difficult.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's everything, right?
Yep.
So that is what birthed my program, which is called Project Connect. It's a
Yes.
part of Bridges Outreach. We provide case management services. We have medical services on site. We have showers that we offer to our clients. We enroll our clients in social entitlement programs, medical insurance. We have job training, job certification courses. Um, anything probably you can think of, we have. And it's our hope that when a neighbor comes in, they can walk in, get everything they need, and start the process in rebuilding their lives.
So that's
And
one
so,
stop shop. It's bricks and mortar place, right?
yes,
And
yes,
it's one stop shopping. You have multiple agencies that can assist these people health wise, employment wise.
yeah. We have a actual federally qualified health center that sends a doctor every week to provide medical services on site. We have an exam room, we have a lab room.
Oh, good.
We
Yeah.
have a veteran social service provider that comes in and has rental assistance for vets and other social services specifically for vets. We have some of our other providers in the community. We offer office space too, as well, because it's our hope that we're doing, the street outreach piece as well. We send our street outreach workers out every single day to engage our neighbors on the street, and our hope is to bring them back to our facilities so that we can begin to create a goal plan with them to help them move towards independence. We do have some rental assistance and back rent assistance as well. And we're hoping as an agency to move towards building our own housing for our clients.
Wow.
For us, we've been in the business for 30 years, and for us, it's the natural progression. So we're looking forward to doing that and actually being able to offer our own housing to our clients in the way that is dignified and just respectful and supportive to our clients. That means more to us than anything. Bridges was founded upon basically our founders wanted to bring the housed and homeless together in community. And we still believe in that. It's really important for us to break the stigma of homelessness and to let people in the community know that they are our neighbors.
Yes,
There's
yes.
just something that has happened along the way which prevents them from having an address, right?
Absolutely. And three things, I wrote down three words. One was veterans. That's huge.
Yes.
And particularly, we're going back now to Vietnam vets,
Mm-hmm.
when society was very angry. And you can imagine them going through an experience where they had to survive living and come back home and be
Oh, my goodness.
yeah, and have nothing.
Yes. Yes.
So I know that there are growing specific veterans programs, but what I did one time working at the county looking at veterans, if you go to our phone listings of agencies, nonprofits and agencies, you could find 200 different agencies serving veterans, and maybe 1% of them were talking to each other.
That sounds very familiar.
Okay, because that increases the cost because of duplication. You can't do
Yes.
economy of scale. It's
Yes.
yeah, that.
It is something that we struggle with. I think a lot of communities struggle with. And one of the things that we thought was really, really important when we opened Project Connect, when we initially opened up Project Connect, we had about 8 to 10 social service providers providing services on a weekly basis out of our space.
Okay.
We thought, it's really important to bring partners into this space to provide as many resources as we possibly could to the community. And we still believe that. We have quarterly social service fairs. In fact, we just had a huge one, and we saw about 200 of our neighbors with 25 social service providers providing resources to them, giveaways. It was incredible. It was last Wednesday. A part of my role, I'm also the chairperson of the City of North's Homeless Coalition, and it's important to us, Bridges, to bring all of the social service providers together so that we can maximize our resources. Because we cannot do it alone. It's not possible.
So how is that working?
It is working. It's actually been, like I said, it was difficult at first.
Yeah.
It was really hard. I think there was a lot of mistrust. I think there was a lot of fear of, losing resources amongst the various agencies.
Yeah.
And I think that was one thing that we were sort of able to navigate through. And now it helps to work as the director of Bridges and also as the chairperson of the coalition, because my role at the coalition is to bring these agencies to the table so that we can figure out how to better serve the homeless population here in Newark.
Absolutely.
And what we're finding, I think, as a coalition is that we are able to service people so much more quickly when we work. It's gotten to the point where we'll have 5 directors of 5 different agencies on the call, case collabing about one person, 10-minute call, and the family is they're in a better place.
And I'm thinking, what I hope, because I do know that HUD, you're getting the federal money from HUD, and 2 things you said, which I think are so positive. Generally, nonprofits have to compete for the same piece of the pie.
Yes.
But apparently you have elevated the concept and the commitment to show that if you have a coalition, you're more efficient, you're more effective, and if you stay at the point of what is our mission versus how much did we get, you can increase by percentages the number of people you're serving. So the other word I had after veterans was trust. And how do you build, one, obviously, how do you build trust among agencies that are trying to serve the same population, but also how do you build trust with your clients?
Yes. So that's the most important part, right?
Yes.
For my team, I'm always stressing consistency.
Yes.
One thing I heard a long time ago was it's really difficult to build trust amongst the street homeless population.
Yeah.
But once you do, you better doggone well make sure you don't break that trust.
Yes.
Because once you do, that's it. And so our thing is to show up, to be consistent, and never to make promises.
Okay. Show up, be consistent, and never promise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that makes sense, actually, in any relationship, really.
Yeah. Right?
Be present. Be present, Promises tend to get broken. And yeah.
Anything could happen. You can have the best intentions.
Yes.
But with this population that we're dealing with, the street homeless population more specifically, they have most likely navigated through the system, the homeless service delivery system, in the past. And something has happened. In some area, we've failed them, right? That's why they're still homeless.
Okay.
So for us, it's important for us to rebuild this trust so that we can start to reintegrate them into the system, because the only way that we can service them is through that sometimes bureaucratic system. So we can't afford to break the trust. We can't. They've been failed before, and I say oftentimes that it may take 50 points of contact to get someone to actually come to the office. And it's our responsibility to nurture that relationship and to protect it.
Absolutely. And yeah, absolutely. We talked about youth, we talked about veterans. I also wanted you to talk about families who are homeless.
Oh, my goodness.
That is, to me, we have a couple of shelters here. 2 of them are county supported. and one of them is for families. And also the other thing that we discovered is there's not affordable housing for single people who have been homeless.
Right.
We are short on those areas, but can you speak to families for a bit?
Yeah, definitely. Families is another one. It's really, really tough here in our community. We fortunately have a significant number of family shelters in our community. However, our homeless, our situation with our families it's dire. We have a lot of families that are experiencing, or not even experiencing, at imminent risk of homelessness because our housing stock is so very expensive in Essex County.
Yes, yes.
The affordable housing is not there. And so for the families in our communities, it's difficult for them to maintain the rents. We've had to sort of bring the members of our coalition together to try to figure out how to leverage our rental assistance programs.
Mm-hmm.
We're able to service them with rental arrears to try to prevent the homelessness. And then what we try to do is wrap around employment programs so that we can increase their income. Because the reality is that affordable housing takes a long time to develop.
Yes.
We're in a good space right now. Our governor has committed to increasing the funding for affordable housing. We just saved the Homeless Trust Fund. One of our women saved our Homeless Trust Fund, and so we have some more money to begin building again really soon.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking forward to that. But in the interim, we have to continue as in our community to leverage our rental assistance. And, again, a lot of it is the relationships that we've been able to build with our shelter providers in our coalition. We're on the phones with the directors, and we're calling about different families that we have that are at imminent risk of homelessness, that have a couple of days where we know, they've lost their jobs. They are definitely going to be evicted. There's nothing that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to set up exit plans for them to get actually out of their apartments and directly into shelter.
Right, yeah.
So that we can try to build some sort of goal plan to get them out of the shelters. It's a crisis.
And the other thing that I guess caused me consternation was seeing families in homeless shelters where the mother was going out every day working.
Yes.
But it was not a wage that could support them in any kind of affordable housing.
And that is the ultimate issue. You know what I mean, Tyra?
Mm-hmm.
We have, I just talked about a young lady. She has 2 children, and she's staying in a shelter. She's working for a Papa John's here in Newark. The owner called us and asked us what we could do to help this young lady. He's increased her hours, but she's not making enough to afford the rent.
I know.
Here in this community.
And then you have the issue of gentrification.
Oh, please.
Okay, what is gentrification? Why don't you give a stab at what it is?
Yes. So it's two-pronged, right? So in the city of Newark, we're growing. It's the market is robust. Mm-hmm. We are seeing a lot of big business coming into the community and helping to rebuild the community. But what happens is the price of real estate skyrockets.
Yep.
And as a result, the local community that's been invested in the community for years can no longer afford to live in the communities where they're rooted in.
Yep.
And so, we're seeing that a lot of the community is having to either move out or struggling to maintain their rents and or mortgages. So it's difficult. The mayor here in our city we are really, really lucky because he's really committed to addressing the homeless situation here.
I was reading that.
Yes.
Baraka, is that his name? Yeah.
Mayor Ras Baraka.
Yes, yes, yes. Uh-huh.
And he's actually just announced a homeless commission that he's going to be formalizing in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, the individuals are going to be sworn in, and the hope is that through this this commission, there'll be thought leaders to sort of try to develop a efficient homeless service delivery strategy. And so that's going to be the inflows of what's causing the inflows of homelessness, what's causing, and one of those things is going to be obviously the lack of affordable housing and gentrification. In reality, that is one of the causes of the increase in homelessness. And our mayor understands that, and he's committed to sitting down with thought leaders to figure out how we can address that, but continue to build Newark.
Absolutely. And it's a balancing act. We know that.
Yes.
And but we also have to have commitment bottom up and top down.
Yes.
And I think, it's one of our society's issue. If we really are going to, quote, make America great again, this is a good place to start. Let's have homes for our people and food to eat, I was looking at this, two things. On my notes, I have HUD in 2017. This was one single night. This is your point in time. One single night in 2017, 553,742 people were experiencing homelessness in the United States for the first time in 7 years. So that's telling us that's how big the problem is. But then the other end of that is opening doors, the strategic plan to prevent and end homelessness. How is that working out where you are? Is it touching you at all?
Absolutely. That is one of the direct impacts of that is our continuum of care.
Okay, yes.
Yes, our Essex County continuum of care. And what I have to say about we call it the COC, what I have to say about the COC is it has really taken a strategic look at our funding and how we've utilized it, if we've maximized our funding as a continuum, and what we need to do to better impact our data so that our data tells the story, because for me, I see the folks, I know what they're going through, I know that our unsheltered numbers are extremely high, but HUD representatives aren't here.
That's right. That's right. They aren't seeing it. Yeah.
In the data. And so that's one of the really positive things that we've seen with our continuum of care here in the county is helping us to improve our data as a continuum so that we can tell a better story to HUD.
Now, something that just crossed my mind right now, you know me, if I'm thinking about it, it's going to come out. As you go through transformation in how we're going to provide affordable housing to people, do you include people who are homeless in some kind of focus group, for lack of a better word, to give you input on what they need, and are you aligning how they got there with maybe some corrective behaviors? Are they involved in the solution? That's the question.
So, Tyra, for me, it doesn't work without that.
Okay.
When we relaunched the Homeless Coalition, my first action point was to establish a position called the Community Liaison.
Okay.
And this person would be a formerly homeless individual that would speak on behalf of the homeless community, advocate on behalf of the homeless community, and give us input directly from the homeless community. And that to me is the most important position on the Homeless Coalition Executive Board. Without that on-the-ground experience, it's all for naught.
Okay, all right. And that, to me, I see it as a critical path, but
Yeah.
you're in the trenches, and I needed to know. I needed to know that. All right, so we have covered a bunch.
Yeah.
A bunch. We've talked about a national crisis in terms of affordable housing. We have to do that. And we talked about the fact that now we talk about homelessness as a circumstance. So we do people first language, people who are homeless, like people who are veterans, and not calling them homeless people, because there are paths out of homelessness, just like there are paths into homelessness.
Yeah.
But I really and truly want to shout out a lot of kudos to Miss Sakinah Hoyte from Newark, New Jersey, who is the director of say your program name. Let's do it this way. If you want to know more about what she's doing, how can they get in touch with you or the Bridges Street Outreach Program?
Definitely. You can visit www.bridgesoutreach.org, and or you can find me on Facebook. I'm there, Bridges Outreach Inc. Follow us on Facebook, like our page, and yeah, join us on the mission to end homelessness. We have to do it together.
Absolutely. And with the ability to move all over the country quickly, you may be homeless in California today, but you may be homeless in Newark tomorrow. So it's our problem. Have a quick question. Did you by any chance write a letter to your younger self?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Okay, girlfriend, you're on. You hear me? Go for it now.
Okay. Dear Sakinah, don't worry, honey. It will all come together. I know that you've just received some shocking news from many different institutions. All of the institutions that you bet your future success on. They've made you feel like it was all for naught. They've made you feel unworthy, and they've made you feel like you have so much to prove to the world. They've made you feel like you must excel and do everything perfect in order to prove that you are valuable. But guess what? You are valuable. You are a gem. You are royalty. You were birthed into royalty through God's divine grace, and your only responsibility is to love and to serve. You will see that your foundation will prove to be solid. You will see that your heart to give back to the community and to devote your life to human rights and the dignity of human beings will prove fruitful and valuable. The most important thing you have to offer the world is not your work ethic and efficiencies. It's the love that you have for mankind. Walk in your truth, sister, your highest, most authentic self. Work hard to serve, and you will see a multitude of fruit yielded in your life and in how God blesses you exceedingly in every area of your life. You'll be all right, honey. Love, yours truly.
Oh, I'm loving that. I am loving that. We should all have a letter like that, carrying it around in our hearts when we're little. But I guess you can't do that, right? Because you have to live before you can give back.
Exactly.
Well, I want you to know something. This has been a pleasure. And I want to add my encouragement to your letter to our listeners and remind them that when they're in doubt, check their label. They are never a markdown. Each and every one of us is the designer's original. God set our value. We are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yes.
Surround yourself with people who can remind you of who you were created to be. You are not alone. You are worthy. I am here and I hear you. Your seat at the table is guaranteed. You've been listening to www.radiofairfax.org. You take good care. Again, my guest has been Ms. Sakinah Hoyte from Newark, New Jersey. Be well. Do something to make yourself smile. And remember, I love you.